Hey, you are listening to Abyss Gazing, a horror podcast where we celebrate all things spooky and mental health.
I'm your co-host, Mark.
I'm Billy.
And I am your co-host, Josh, and this is a surreal experience for me doing this episode because our guest for this episode is actually the gentleman that I started Victims and Villains with 8 years ago. So please help me in welcoming Sean the Wanderer Davis back to the universe.
Fuck me, man. It's been 8 years.
It has been 8 years.
It's been 8 years. How long have we been doing Abyss Gazing?
4 years. We're a few months shy of 5 years, so
Wow.
yeah, time flies.
It's a long time.
It is a long time, and Sean is currently under the weather, so I appreciate you being here to talk about one of your favorite film franchises of all time.
Yeah, dude, I feel like I'm dying right now, but okay.
And we are coming back to the universe of Alien after Fantasia Fest coverage. So we're talking about Alien Resurrection on this one. Mark thinks that I am going to absolutely annihilate this movie.
So
So
like you annihilated that word.
yeah, kind of like I annihilated that word in Alien 3 last week.
I wasn't even here to defend it. That's the bad thing.
Don't worry. Brandon did a good job at defending it. He was a
Yeah.
good guest to have for that one. It was a well-balanced conversation. But yeah, Sean, this is often looked at as the worst entry into the series. What are your thoughts on this?
I love this movie. Everything except the end. The cast is stacked. Like, all of it is great until the end. I don't like the end. Otherwise, it's great.
All right. What do you got for me, Mark? Mark, do you hate this movie? Because every time I talk to you, you're like, I hate this movie.
No. Well, you hate like everything I like pretty much. We've come to accept this at this point. It's just who you are.
It's part of our dynamic, I guess.
It's not the best one in the franchise. It has some interesting moments. It would have made a good Alien movie, but to me, it doesn't quite make the best Alien movie.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't the xenomorphs and they had come up with some new creature and it's not Ripley, I feel like it would have been a better movie than trying to shoehorn Ripley and the aliens in it and some other bad casting choices for some characters in this movie.
All right. Before I go any further, who do you think is defined as a bad casting for this film?
The captain of the ship, for one.
Let me pull up IMDb here. Go on.
He's always played goofy roles, goofy characters, and he just didn't kind of remind me of any sort of military leader,
You talk about the one that played General Perez,
whatever his name was.
the one off
He's got a
Clueless.
Oh,
big
yeah.
brain on the back of his head, right?
Yeah, Dan Hidea.
Yeah. When I think of him, I think of Clueless and Dick. So
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, he's made his drive. But I mean, he's also done like dramatic roles like, the Usual Suspects, Mulholland Drive, Commando. So he's not a stranger. I think he's just mostly more known for his comedic films.
And I think somebody else should have been picked for the android other than Winona Ryder.
I'm going to argue with you on that one.
Yeah, I'm also gonna argue with her. I think Winona Ryder did a good job. I'll just put that out there. Sean, would you like to come in and defend?
Yeah, I think she was fine. I like Winona Ryder.
I don't have any issues with Winona Ryder in general. I don't know. I think somebody else could have been used. I don't know who. I just don't think she fit very well as the android.
is it just your thought of the android or the actual storyline of the android? Because to me, she fit because it's an android built by android. So she didn't have everything else that we would expected of the older ones. Plus, this is the first, if I remember correctly, this is the first female android in the movie series.
That they showed, yeah.
Yeah.
She is the first female android. It's more of the fact that you saw the way the android was played in the original, and you saw the way the android was played in Aliens, and there was something just off in the acting that they didn't seem quite right. But Winona Ryder just kind of seemed like another person there, and that I think that's what bothered me about her.
No, my guy. But Billy, go ahead.
I'm gonna say first, it goes back to what I just said. You're talking about the androids the humans built versus the android that androids built. So
But you're talking about it
different.
You're talking about an android that's built by androids in the way they think people are.
I don't care. It's Winona Ryder. I win. No, I actually like the way she did this story, or she did the android character on this. And I mean, you're welcome to your opinion, Mark. You're wrong in this case too, so you're good.
So I also want to say that anytime that you have a franchise and there are certain beats that you have to hit in that franchise, there's always going to be elements that are going to feel familiar or predictable. I mean, we saw them in, last year when we covered Evil Dead. We saw it last year when we covered Phantasm. Every time, even with The Omen, like, it's just inevitable that it's going to be predictable. Now, I think a android being created by another android was a fascinating spin on that story beat that you've come to know. I also really dug the kind of heist feel of it at one point as well. There was a lot. I'm just gonna show my hands because I haven't said I am right here with Sean. I really liked this movie. I know you expected me to hate it, Mark, and I came in full-heartedly coming in to hate this movie, and I actually
is it
really
possible
loved
you
this.
liked it because you came in with low expectations?
I don't know. I really had a fun time with this film. I know that a lot of people, this is like notoriously seen as one of the weaker elements in the film, but honestly, this cast, the like the heisty elements of it, the ideas that they play with when it comes to Ripley and also Winona Ryder, Ron Perlman. I liked Michael Wincott's in this movie. He's great in this movie. Freaking Brad Dourif was like one of my favorite parts in this movie. Like, there's so much about this movie that I genuinely enjoyed. And I agree. I think I'm right there with Sean. I think it falls apart in the end, but it's a fun as hell journey getting to that ending.
It's like I said, it's not a bad movie. It just, to me, it doesn't seem like an Alien franchise movie. It seems like it should have been something else.
I mean, I agree that it kind of fell apart at the end, and to me, the alien felt like more of a creature than an alien, just to me, based on all the other aliens we've dealt with and all the alien movies we've covered so far. So that's the part I don't like about it. I do like the story and how everything comes together, but
yes, but I come back to my original point of this being the fourth entry into a franchise.
right.
There's only literally so much you can do with this. And I think that it works for the alien feeling more like a creature rather than, something that has to be studied the way that we've seen in other ones. Now, I will also say that I liked those elements a lot more. I thought they were a lot stronger here, where you had the dwarf character as the doctor, like him, like having that like standoff with the alien, the xenomorph, was probably one of my favorite sequences in this movie.
Where he's
Like,
making faces at the glass.
yeah, like I thought that was
Such a weirdo.
I was like, I almost wanted to go back and rewatch that scene because he just brings like an A game to it. It's a really dumb throwaway scene, but he makes it so memorable and really stand out. I was really sad that he dies. I will say that.
I mean, I loved one of the scenes where it goes back similar to where you were just talking about, where the alien was in the glass. But if I remember right, there were 3 of them in there, and it kind of gave that Spider-Man theme where all 3 Spider-Mans are pointing to each other, because it's like, okay, which one of us is going to die so we can get out of here?
Yeah, that was one of the scenes I kind of felt was a little bit weird, was they were talking to each other, and you never really see anything like that in the movies, in any of the movies, and that just seemed a little strange to me.
You do kind of in the book, not so much in the movie.
Now, I haven't read the books, so
There's a lot of books.
There is a lot of books.
also a lot of comics.
I've read more of the novels than I've read.
Yeah, I have some of the old Colonial the Space Marines comics. Colonial Marines, sorry. Am I mixing up Warhammer and Alien now?
Probably.
Yeah.
Look, if there's anybody that knows about like the all of like the books when it comes to it, it's Sean. Like, dude read I think like almost every Alien book last year.
No, I read like 12, like probably 50 or 60. But I read a good chunk of them in a good 8 months span, maybe.
Yeah, so it'll be something we never cover on this, but we're gonna take a quick commercial break right now. The song that you guys are getting ready to hear, this is the Contactees. The song is called Chipped. You guys can check them out on August 10th, playing at Another Round. We've got a great lineup for you guys, and it's all about punk rock and mental health. So come out and check it out. The show starts at doors are at 7. We'll provide more links in the show notes below. It's at Another Round. We'll be right back.
This audio log was intercepted by Agent Brian Powers as a part of Project Bagman. The contents on this file is evidence and is considered highly classified. Upon retention of the information contained within this device, destroy immediately.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text help to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in the show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us.
Welcome back to Abyss Gazing, where we are still fighting over alien resurrection. So I want to ask this question because we talked about it on the last episode. This is the kind of, it has this like beautiful swan song that gets sent off for the Ripley character where she dies, and then 300 years later, which is this movie set is it 200 years after the Alien
200.
3? Okay,
Yeah.
so 200 years later, Ripley comes back and
Cloned back.
is
Cloned
cloned
back.
back. How did you guys feel about that? I felt like it cheapened the end for part 3 in my defense.
And throw in, after many attempts, she was cloned back. So
Facts.
And that was part of the, not so much the cloning, but the cloning that happened to also clone the queen kind of thing. It's that didn't make sense at all.
I mean, when they went in the clone room and all the different versions of what they ran into for the first 7 before they hit the 8th one, of how each one hit and everything, and then the way that they treated Ripley, that her clone actually basically was an alien, because her blood and everything was just as toxic as alien blood.
Yeah.
Well, it was it was acidic, but it didn't seem to be quite as acidic because it was a blend. Or at least that's the way I saw it. But
Also, I don't know enough about the science of cloning, but were they purposely trying to clone her so that they could get the xenomorph queen out of her?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Like that's why I'm saying the cloning didn't make sense.
that's what I'm saying. Like the science of it just doesn't make sense. From like, okay, this is I don't know. I had like a buddy of mine just recently. We inspired him to go through all the Alien movies for the first time, and he came to this and he was like, "This felt like to me logically Resident Evil, but in space." And he's not wrong.
I can see that.
And when this came out, wasn't it about the time cloning started getting more taboo or more popular, like 97?
So this movie.
Well, the funny thing is I saw this in the theater opening weekend, and
I think Sean did too.
I did not.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm just trying to bring you into the conversation, my guy.
Yeah.
I saw it opening weekend, and I remember seeing some of the making ofs that like HBO used to do back in the day.
Mhm.
And the scene in the water where they're all swimming and they've got the 2 xenomorphs after them, they actually mimic the Galapagos iguanas
Nice.
for the swimming scene for the xenomorphs, because it had to do with the structure and the way they were built. They thought that would be the closest thing to represent how they would be swimming.
No, it was Covenant. I saw opening weekend.
Okay. Covenant coming in 2 weeks.
I know. I saw some little boy get traumatized in real time watching that movie.
Man, seeing kids get traumatized in the movies, nothing beats seeing the like 5 and 6 year old kids in the Evil Dead remake within the first 5 minutes.
No,
that was fantastic watching those kids get traumatized.
I probably have one of the most uncomfortable traumatic stories when it comes to it. It's not gore, it's not violence, nothing like that. I went to go see the My Bloody Valentine remake in theaters opening, and I sat next to a father and his like 5-year-old son, and there is a very
The 3D titties.
Yeah, there's a very open like sex scene in that film, and the dad kind of freaked out when it came on, and he was like, "Oh no, cover your eyes!" And the kid like did it for like a split second. He was like, "Daddy, what's going on? What are they doing?" And like he had to explain sex in that moment, and it was very uncomfortable. And to this day is one of my favorite
Yeah.
theater stories to tell.
You learned a lot in that moment, huh?
Yeah.
That's when Josh learned about sex.
I didn't know. I hadn't had sex at that moment, so
Yeah, I saw that movie in the theater too, in 3D. So yeah,
Really?
that was a fun murder scene.
Oh yeah, I saw that in theaters too. Actually, it was funny. Like halfway through the movie, the lights came on, and the movie stopped, and they were like, "Yeah, the 3D wasn't working. So if you want, you can leave and refund you, or you can stay and watch the rest." And the girl I was dating was like, "I'm pissed." I was like, "No, I paid for this. I'm gonna stay and watch the rest." So I stayed and watched.
nice, my man. But I gotta imagine a theater experience with this film being very akin to Batman and Robin, Mark, to where I feel like you're coming in expecting something, fun and great, and then kind of getting this like mediocre experience. I mean, I don't think anyone here hated this movie.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's just it's not the best entry in the series at all.
It's better than the first one. That's a hot take for you.
You're a dumbass on that statement.
What did you say?
He just
I'm sorry.
he just said Alien Resurrection is better than Alien. That's what he said.
Oh no, I heard it.
Yeah.
Maybe out of the ones we've done, maybe the third one, but no, not the top one.
I mean, the third one was dog doo doo,
No.
though.
Well, that I'm saying out of the four ranking them, this would be the third. The third one would be the fourth in the rankings for me.
I don't know, man. I genuinely really liked this movie. I think Mark was right. Like I came in with like such low expectations, especially after the third one, which was like such a chore to get through. Then by the time you get to this one, it's just like this is like that sweet spot of what I love in camp is it's got a lot of great adventure and great action in this one, but also it's got like it's just kind of goofy and fun, and I just think that this is a great popcorn film. Is it the best film in the series? Not by a long shot. It's a great popcorn film, though.
Yeah,
Also,
it's
Joss Whedon film.
Yeah, it's Josh Whedon.
It's what?
Josh
It's a
Whedon.
Joss Whedon film.
Yeah,
It
Joss
is. It is Joss Whedon. Yeah.
it is.
Yeah,
Yes,
he wrote
it
it.
is.
He wrote it.
You don't
I don't
believe me?
remember that.
It's,
I rewound it and double checked because I thought I read it wrong.
no, Sean is right. It is worth
Yeah.
mentioning that it is
with two other writers.
No,
He's
So-
still
nope.
Oh.
If you are on IMDb and you click all the Dan O'Brien and Ronald Charlotte, they are only credited simply by characters. So there's it is characters by based on characters that they created. But Joss Whedon is the sole singular writer on this film.
Okay, maybe that's why it didn't quite fit the series.
Maybe. I mean, how do you go from like doing a movie like Toy Story to this?
I mean, we did interview somebody that went from doing the Muppets
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
that's
old
fair.
ways.
That's fair. Oh, what a great episode.
I do know the director hasn't done a lot of American films after this. He's stuck with a lot of French stuff.
I think also, I think this film, I brought up Batman and Robin earlier as kind of a comparison, but I think this film, they kind of didn't know what to do with the series post, and so then they got this finally long-awaited AVP, both One and Requiem. We won't cover them on during this series, but I think that was kind of like the idea was to retool this, and so this franchise really lied dormant for quite a while.
Well, it About 5 years, because Alien 3 was 92.
92.
Well, I'm talking
So that-
about that. I'm talking about from Alien to Prometheus.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, they were trying with Alien versus Predator, they were trying to tie the two characters together like they did in the comic books. The ultimate hunter versus the ultimate predator, basically.
Mhm.
And that was the attempt to tie the two worlds together to make a joint universe in the movies. And it didn't really quite stick.
Yeah, because I mean, this one really didn't turn a profit. I mean, it was made for $70 million, and it made 161 in its by the time it finished its box office run. And you have to also factor in that marketing is also double the budget. So you're looking at like a more moderate of like 20 $20 million, but that also you have to take into consideration about like theater cuts and pay. So realistically, this movie probably lost them quite a number of stuff, and it's probably the reason that we end up going to AVP, because it's like, all right, again, Freddy versus Jason was this massive deal, and AVP I feel like was kind of made as a response to that.
Yeah, because they wanted to do a lot of competition movies like that through that time period, but very few of them actually made it. But the Alien vs Predator comics were actually fairly good and did fairly well for the comic scene back in the early 90s, late 80s, I think, where Dark Horse had the rights to them for a long time.
Yeah, 1989.
Yeah, and I think Marvel's got the rights to both of them now. So you're seeing things like Wolverine versus the Predator, Wolverine versus Alien. I know at one point in comics they did the Predator versus Batman, which is actually the first one was a really good series. It was a 3-part series, but they do what?
Predator Batman was dope.
Yeah, yeah, they did like 2 or 3 more mini series for that, but the first one was excellent. But yeah, it was an attempt to kind of jumpstart a more shared universe and build off the Freddy versus Jason, which didn't really work out too well.
So I will say this. I have the Wikipedia pulled up right now for AVP, and this is one of the notes that they said. So before Fox actually greenlit AVP, Aliens writer director James Cameron had actually been working on a fifth Alien film, which would have ultimately, I feel like, really revived what this franchise needed. It is saying, I think it would be a lot of fun, but the most important thing is to get the story right. And in 2002 interview, Ridley Scott, who was working on the film as well, said that they wanted to go back to the alien creatures where they were first found, and explained how they were created, and that ultimately became Prometheus, as we'll talk about next week. But yeah, I am kind of sad that didn't work out, because James Cameron also kind of got like really weird after Titanic. So I don't know how much you guys know, but like he did like a butt ton of documentaries on the Titanic after that film was like became the juggernaut it now is.
So he went really big into like the Titan. He did a Titanic documentary, which is actually really cool because he funded a lot of the science behind it and a lot of the equipment he funded for that. I think he was behind another one for the Bismarck, which that one was really cool to see. And he did another one where he built a sub to go to like the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And then he came back and did like Avatar.
Yeah. I mean, he'd been developing Avatar for a while, and he just kind of, the reason why it delayed for so long is he felt like the technology just wasn't where it needed to be. And that's one of those things that I've always really respected about Cameron as a director, is that he'll kind of backline a project if it's not to where it needs to be. And I think with Alien as a franchise, when you're moving from, the abomination that is Alien 3 to this one to AVP. You know, there's a lot of these like tonal shifts, whereas when you look at the first two films, they look and feel very much in tone with one another. And it felt like with the departure of Scott and Cameron, they ultimately really didn't know what to do with this franchise.
It seems like it's more of a cash grab. They wanted to, oh, look, Ripley's back. The aliens are back. Where I felt like Alien 3 was kind of even though you didn't like it from a story arc standpoint, it was a fitting end that Ripley takes the aliens with her, and that's the end of it. Or should have been. She had spent so much of her life fighting the aliens that to me it just seemed like a fitting ending to the Ripley arc, and then you turn around and clone Ripley and try to bring a new ending to the franchise, which just I don't know, it didn't, it felt almost like fan fiction than actually part of the series.
And then they turn around and twist it and basically make her the mama of all the aliens.
Yeah.
There's a whole other book series. There's 3 of them. It's what is it? Out of the Shadows, River of Pain, Sea of Sorrows. One of them takes place in between Alien and Aliens, and it's Ripley. She got woken up out in the middle of space. Well, the Xenos then lost her memory, and then that's when they find her with the aliens.
Yeah, so he is right. There is a multitude of films that are written. Also, apparently, it was going to include Joss Whedon was going to come back to do an Earth set script for Alien 5. Scorpion Weaver wasn't interested in coming back for that particular film. But more sequels were ultimately panned. There is quite a lot, like Sean said. They've been explored in the comic series Alien versus Predator versus the Terminator, and the books Original Sin and Sea of Sorrows, which out of every film we've seen so far, this seems like such a weird place to kind of build a literary universe around.
Well, I know one of the sequel ideas was having the aliens make it to Earth finally. That was one of the ideas they were going to go with, and the colonial marines were supposed to be dealing with them. And it was actually, if I remember right, it was one of the talks they were going through for doing Alien vs. Predator, was that the Predator was going to, a group of them were going to show up to help kind of take out the aliens. And
that's
they
kind
did.
of what happened in Requiem.
Do what?
That's kind of what happened in Requiem a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the story ideas I had heard back in the day that they wanted to do for a sequel. I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the Alien series and the Colonial Marine series that they're working on, to see where they take that. But yeah.
It's also very weird to me, like looking at this film in terms of like the grand scheme of things, because this is very much the campiest entry that we've gotten so far, and kind of comparing it to the Resident Evil but in space idea. The next film in the series, Alien vs. Predator, would be written and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who wrote and directed Resident Evil in 2002.
Was it really him?
Yeah.
Really, his wife wasn't in it either?
Wait. That's the same dude that did Event Horizon.
Yes, Event
Yeah,
Horizon.
I just found that out the other day. I didn't realize.
How do you
it
do
was like 3 days.
Event Horizon, which is just a cult classic at this point and amazing? If you say shit about Event Horizon, we're gonna
No. Keep going. I liked Event Horizon. Keep going.
and then do something like that.
Keep in mind too that even if you don't like them, the Resident Evil film series is regarded highly among people. It is a cult classic in its own right.
It is.
And it is a
not
cult,
Event Horizon.
it is a cult classic for the same reason that this film, I enjoyed this film, you know, and he also made Mortal Kombat too.
And Mortal Kombat was awesome.
Mortal Kombat's fine. It's
It was
good.
awesome.
It's good camp.
Exactly.
Mortal Kombat was great, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank
you
you.
watch it for the camp.
I'm not saying it's a good movie. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's a
No, it's a
mindless
good
movie like
It's a
this
good
movie.
And then I know, was it Neil Blomkin, whatever his name is?
Blomkamp.
He was tied to a sequel that was supposed to take place after Aliens. It was kind of going to ignore three and Resurrection.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
kind of got greenlit and then went away and then came back, and it just kind of went back and forth till it finally fell off. And every once in a while it pops up that, oh, they're talking about doing it again. And I don't know what they're planning on doing with that. It'll probably never see the light of day outside of
No,
were
I'm
his,
talking
pretty
about-
sure Prometheus is what stopped that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Prometheus is what stopped that. But also the Blomkamp got crushed in the Fox Disney merger, so it will never see the light of day.
But
Much
yeah,
like
it was-
Gambit.
But yeah, it was supposed to take place after Aliens and kind of ignore Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection.
Also, I know we talked about this earlier, but I want to kind of expand on this point. I think one of the reasons that I really enjoyed this film is the element of the heist with the Michael Wincott, Ron Perlman gang. It's not something I feel like by this point every other entry into that kind of hits that formula where you have a group of characters that are stationed together. Ripley ends up being the final girl. They all battle an alien, whereas this one kind of shifted away from that to where you're still having that group, but it's a group with sinister motives.
Yeah.
I never really felt like Ripley was the final girl. She was more of the final combatant, which is a little different.
We had a whole discussion on the first episode of this series about the better final girl. Go check out our original Alien episode.
Exactly.
Billy, go ahead.
I was going to say, how is she not the final girl if she's the only one that's showing up in all the movies, Mark?
In a lot of them, your final girl ends up being the final survivor. Sigourney Weaver and Ripley were the original badasses, and without Ripley, you wouldn't have ended up with like Katniss whatever in the Hunger Games. She was like the basis for the strong female character and strong lead.
What about Sarah Connor, though?
Sarah Connor was after Ripley.
Yeah.
He's
Fair enough.
not wrong, but I will also say this: you only say that because you don't. That's what you know in this timeline. If there was another timeline that came along, what if there was another final girl for anything? Like for all you know, Alice from like Friday the 13th could have been like the definitive poster child for everything. You can't say something like that. Like if Ripley hadn't existed, there would be another character that did it.
Would it have been as soon? Would they have been as popular? Who would they have based the character on?
Yeah, but you could argue Princess Leia.
Could you though? Could you really?
Yes, she
I could.
Princess Leia didn't carry the
Yes,
franchise.
she could.
Would Terry Fisher have made that backwards basketball shot, though? Because Sigourney Weaver actually did when they filmed that. She made that shot.
Yep. That was a legit scene. That was not computer. She did that shot.
Guess you'll never know. This movie is also not super deep, so there's not a whole lot of like
it's not.
mental health things to talk about. So this is kind of like a relaxer for us.
I mean, if you want to make it mental health, the mom has
You
to
look at
kill
that,
off it. The mom has to kill off the baby at the end. The alien is her baby.
That was such a cheesy scene.
That was a cheesy.
Hey,
scene.
oh, I know. I was expecting the alien to start screaming, "Mama, please, no!" I mean, I mean, that would have made it better for me because just to make it the extra cheese, because that's what this movie is to me, is the cheesy one.
It is. It is. Overall, that's what it is. It's a cheesy movie set in the Alien franchise that was a
Now,
cash grab because they didn't know what else to do with it.
now just imagine if they waited a couple years and went back and put Hellboy in to fight the alien.
Mm. I just watched that movie last week. No, I will also say that I feel like this is kind of the rejuvenation it needed, though. Like, I feel like the first two films are fantastic, but the third one kind of took itself a little bit too seriously. Whereas with this one, you kind of just need that jump, and it kind of enters into this camp era for the next couple of entries, because after this you have the two AVPs, and they're both very campy, very just kind of goofy and dumb like this.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, you also get the introduction of the Predalien, which was kind of cool in concept from the comics and some of the other material based outside of the movies. Because the xenomorphs take on the characteristics of the host they are implanted in. So from Aliens vs. Predator, you get the Predalien makes its TV appearance.
That's fair.
And it was a really cool creature.
Yeah.
I saw this online the other day, kind of random, but what would happen if a facehugger got a hold of the aliens from Quiet Place? What would come out?
Ooh.
The alien from what?
No, right? Quiet Place.
Oh yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, right.
I'm here for it, though.
But the thing, I think part of the reason I like 3 better than this one, which you don't like, is because I think it was actually one of the first aliens I saw. One of the first
see.
alien movies I saw.
You have nostalgia tied to it. That's
And,
understandable.
Yeah, I saw
I
it. 'cause
legitimately like the third movie.
I do too. I think it's a good movie. It's not the best in the franchise, but it's still a solid entry, and I still feel like it's a good exit point for the story arc of Ripley and the aliens. But yeah, they used to have every Saturday night at 8:00 Eastern on HBO was the new movie premiere, and I remember seeing this premiere on HBO back in the early '90s, and it was awesome.
The novelization of 3 is pretty good.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today.
Josh looks confused.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
I'm not. Anything else you guys want to talk about? Any other moments in this film? Or
No,
I would probably rate them so far in order that they were put out.
I've already told you that I highly disagree with that, but that's fine. That's fine. Because to me, it's not in terms of quality, but it's in terms of enjoyment. Whereas, like, if I'm gonna talk about films that I'm gonna enjoy, this one would be number 2. That's because most of my issues still exist with the first film, where it's a lot of dead space, a lot of pacing issues. I understand where it comes in the scope of cinema, and I respect it for that. it's just not a film that I revere the way that other people do.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this one, even the way it is, it would be like the third one to me, and the third one would be the fourth one. The first two, I can't figure out which one I'd like better. I actually
They're
like
just so-
Aliens.
They're so different. The first two are so different from each other, style wise of movie. Is part of what makes it hard to kind of decide. They're both really good movies. I just prefer the original.
Well, that's your opinion. That's fine. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode of Abyss Gazing. But next week, we are blasting back to where it all began with Prometheus. So, Sean, do you have anything you'd like to promote or anything where people can find you?
No, not really. To be completely honest.
It's like,
But
I'm
if you
here.
need somebody for Covenant, I watched that recently, and I will happily watch it again. Yeah, need somebody for it.
We have some returning guests for that one, but thank
Let
you.
me know.
No.
Well,
Billy, where can we find you?
You can find me at Letterbox at VABoy99, which Mark just added me.
He found him. And,
Hey,
you guys can find me also on Litterbox. It's at Captain Nostalgia. Mark, where can people find you?
Instagram, Titanium Juggernaut Painting.
Don't say it like that.
Yeah,
You're saying it like in its inflection, like you're not sure where people can find you.
because half
Or
the
you're not
time
too
I forget.
excited.
You guys can find
Half the
me.
time.
You guys can find me. You guys can find Abyss Gazing. I've already given my socials. Find Abyss Gazing wherever you guys get your podcast from. You guys can follow our parent company, Victims and Villains. That it's crazy to think that Sean and I created this 8 years ago.
yeah, dude.
And everything it's grown into now. I was working on our fall schedule before we started recording this, and there's just some crazy things that Victims is doing this year, and we want you guys to be a part of it. So you guys can follow Victims and Villains wherever you guys get your podcast from. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and you guys can support our mental health education efforts over on Patreon, patreon.com/victims and villains, where you can also get exclusive content. We're leaving you guys this week with Platitudes. The song is called Ceiling. Once again, you guys can catch these guys with the-contactees Saturday, August 10th at another round here in Richmond, Virginia. But remember, the longer that you gaze into the abyss, the more the abyss gazes back into you.